This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome in, folks, to another edition of Open Mic Night. I'm your host, Noah Luki. And on today's episode, the Lions, this whole OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr. saga, looks like it came to an end. The Lions will not acquire OBJ. I'll talk a little bit about that as well. Also, big signing, at least for the Lions' perspective, Josh Reynolds reuniting with old teammate Jared Goff. I'll break that down for you a little bit. Couple more, a little bit extra Lions news today as well. Also, I'm taking a little bit of a break from Michigan and Michigan State with football. I want to focus on the Tigers. And they had a big signing, Tucker Barnhart at catcher. I want to talk a little bit about that signing and what that means possibly for the future of the club. Also, a couple of names to look out for if the Tigers might want to sign them in the offseason. So I wanted to focus a little more on the Tigers today because we didn't really have a chance to take a deep dive into the offseason from when their season ended just last month. So I definitely want to dive in a little bit more with that for sure. Hopefully everybody had a great weekend out there. I apologize for this episode coming out a little bit later. Usually I like to aim for it to come out on Tuesdays, but lately I know I've been pressing it a little bit to Wednesdays. This may even come out on Thursday. I'm not sure yet, but I apologize. I've just been very busy. As a graduate assistant in the sports information department here at John Carroll, we have a lot of teams competing right now in the NCAA tournament and the postseason. Some winter sports just beginning right now. Football is just about to end, and our men's soccer team actually made it to the NCAA tournament for the fourth straight year, and our women's basketball team and men's basketball team are both starting up this week as well. So a lot of busyness in the office, but I'm definitely very happy to be here with you guys talking some Detroit sports. My favorite sports town, that is for sure. All right, so a little bit more into the Lions. So I'm going to get into this Odell Beckham Jr. story because I think it's pretty interesting. So the Lions all year, right? The Lions all year. What has been their number one problem on offense? Receiver. They need a lot of receiver help. Obviously, you go back to the preseason. They signed Tyrell Williams to be the number one. Didn't even play a game for the Lions. They ended up releasing him this past week as well and giving him an injury settlement. So Tyrell Williams will not suit up for the Lions probably ever again. They also got Brashad Perryman in the offseason as well to be like a number two behind Williams. Had a very disappointing preseason. What happens? They let him go. So then you're thinking, okay, so the Lions receivers, you got Quintez Cephas, Amon-Ra St. Brown. They traded for Trinity Benson from the Denver Broncos. Tom Kennedy, who was also released this past week. I mentioned St. Brown. A lot of Khalif Raymond. That's who just came to mind, Khalif Raymond. So you have these guys, and these guys aren't really big NFL receivers. I think the original plan was to sign Williams, but he had a big brain injury. Obviously in football that's pretty serious today. So they he never played a game for the Lions, and that's a shame because especially when you expect this guy to do so much for you, and you sign guys like Trinity Benson. You give up possibly valuable draft capital to get him, and Trinity Benson's done almost nothing this year. You even signed Kadero Hodge. What has Kadero Hodge done? I know Khalif Raymond might be the most consistent. He might be one of the most consistent receivers on the team right now, and I wouldn't even call him anything special. Obviously, Quintez Cephas out for the year, and I'm really hoping they could try to at least work St. Brown in the rest of the bye week, or at least for the rest of the season. We'll have to see. But big NFL news was that OBJ basically didn't want to play for the Browns anymore. And, he was granted his release, and, he went on waivers on Monday. And Dan Campbell was asked about this. Are the Lions interested in signing Odell Beckham Jr.? And he basically straight up said no. We have no interest in signing him. First of all, I love the honesty from Dan Campbell. He's not trying to hide behind a smoke screen or anything. He very, very honest, and I really liked how he just blatantly said no. We're not interested. So I think there's two sides to this. First is the side of, Jared Goff needs receiver help. When he has receivers around him, he goes to Super Bowls. He goes to Pro Bowls. That's what he did with the Rams. He had all that talent around him. Now, he has no talent, and what's happened? 0-8. Anthony Lynn is an offensive coordinator. No talent around, no wins. Not a good offensive coordinator. When he has talent, it's a different story. When there's no talent, it's not good. Not good. Now, this Odell Beckham thing, to me, it kind of reminds me of what the Pistons did with Blake Griffin back in 2018. It kind of like is a comparison. Now, obviously, the Lions didn't sign Odell Beckham, but it was kind of like a similar situation, I feel like. The Pistons that year weren't really going anywhere. And they traded for Blake Griffin, who really didn't do much that season. I mean, yeah, he was probably the best player on the team, but as a team, the Pistons weren't going anywhere that year. More of like a quick fix. Let's try to get people inside Little Caesars Arena. This brand new first-year arena. We're going to try to get people in. And that's what, in my opinion, I think that's what Tom Gores and all those people wanted. They wanted to get Blake in on that big they didn't care about the big contract. They just wanted to sell tickets. They wanted a star attraction. Personally, I think the Lions did a good job here. I think they did a good job of not buying into, let's go get a quick fix. Because Odell probably would have been just sort of a quick fix, if you know what I mean. He might have gotten some more people to buy tickets. Maybe a little bit more production offensively. But I think the Lions not signing Odell Beckham, I think it kind of proves something for the long run. I think it really proves that Brad Holmes and company are sticking to their plan. Because you have to think about this for a second. I know there's a lot of fans out there that said, why aren't the Lions ever in the mix for these type of players? Which is true. I totally understand that. I have many questions about that too. Big free agents are out there. How come the Lions aren't in on the mix? I understand. I question it sometimes too. But you have to remember the circumstances. This team is 0-8. What big free agent is going to come to an 0-8 team midseason? Usually big-time free agents want to go somewhere where they can win. They want to win a Super Bowl. Some of it is getting paid for sure. But especially midseason, you want to go to a team that's trying to contend. Now you start to see rumors of Odell going to the Packers and among other places, some more contender-like teams. He's not going to go to an 0-8 Lions team who's already struggling with salary issues. But I think Brad Holmes is sticking to his plan with Dan Campbell. Because think about this. If the Lions would have taken Odell Beckham, that could have cost them draft capital, valuable draft capital, salary implications with his salary, or he might have even been a locker room distraction. And we know how the Lions don't like the locker room distractions with players. They do not want any players like that. Or as Dan Campbell would say, we don't have any turds here. Okay, I think the Lions were fine with this. Plus, if you look at OBJ from a production standpoint, his production has slipped each year he's been with the Browns. This isn't the Odell Beckham who's breaking the internet with his one-handed catch against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football in 2014. That's not the Odell anymore. This is a completely different Odell Beckham. Now, does Odell maybe need a spark somewhere? Maybe. Maybe that could get the juices flowing again. But that's with a contender. He's not going to get that spark with Jared Goff. Look, I get the fans' frustration. We need stars. We need talent. But remember, guys, this is not the OBJ from 5, 6, 7 years ago. This is an older OBJ who's in decline, in my opinion. Plus, the salary implications, draft capital that possibly, could have taken away from the rebuild. Lions staying put, I think that's fine. I really do. Trust the process, Lions fans. Trust the process. But the receiver that they did sign, Josh Reynolds, basically for nothing. He was actually waived by the Browns earlier this week as well. So, Josh Reynolds, receiver from Texas A&M, 4th-round pick from 2017, played 4 seasons with the LA Rams. So, of course, he was an old teammate of Jared Goff. 113 receptions, 1,450 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Started 8 games with the Rams back in 2018, the year they made it to the Super Bowl. Caught a career-high 5 touchdowns. This past season, 2020, he had 618 yards. So, obviously a guy that, has had some little bit of production here and there. Now, is this gonna be like the next coming of Calvin Johnson or Cooper Kupp or whoever? No. Mm-mm. But does a signing like this hurt? No. I don't think this hurts the Lions at all. Because first of all, you get him for nothing. This is a guy that has played with Jared Goff before, so he already has some sort of chemistry with him. Am I saying it's going to lead to a bunch of wins and a more potent offense? No. But I think it at least gives Jared Goff another tool, a guy that he has experience with. But I don't know if it's one of those things with Josh Reynolds, if maybe he just benefited from having all that talent around him. Maybe doubling up Robert Woods, doubling up Cooper Kupp, and he's able to get wide open because nobody's going to be doubling up Josh Reynolds. So we're going to have to see how he does on single coverage. But overall, I don't mind the signing. And, with Tyrell Williams being released and Tom Kennedy, all that, obviously it's very obvious at this point that the Lions need some receiving help. Quintez Cephas out for the year with the collarbone injury and all that. So definitely, I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. And hopefully he gets to play against the Steelers this weekend. I unfortunately will not be at the game. I have to work some NCAA soccer here at John Carroll on Sunday. But if I didn't have that, I would definitely be finding a ticket and going to Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's only a little bit less than 2 hours from Cleveland, especially on this side of town. I would love to go to Heinz Field and see all the terrible towels and all that. So, but I will be staying here and I will be definitely watching that game because I think it's going to be interesting because a lot of my because here at John Carroll there's a lot of Steeler fans here, a lot of Browns, Steelers, and Bills fans, and a lot of my Steeler friends are telling me that they're not too confident with the Steelers right now. They keep telling me that the Steelers always seem to blow these games. They love playing down to their competition. So we'll see about that. But if you remember and I know it's preseason. But if you remember that preseason game, it was not a pretty sight from earlier in the year when the Lions went over to Pittsburgh. So, and now Pat Freiermuth seems to be emerging as well the last couple games. And historically how the Lions have done against tight ends, not good. So, and then Najee Harris is coming into his own as well as a rookie running back. And, we'll see. I know Big Ben has not, he's aged now, and he can't really move around in that pocket anymore. But I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know about the win this week for the Lions. That's maybe, but hey, maybe Browns next week. We'll see. Just before Thanksgiving against the Bears, but I don't know. I'm just not seeing it right now. Unless they just surprise. Unless something clicked during the bye week. But as far as I can tell, before the bye week, nothing really that impresses me too much. For any hope for this weekend. That's for sure. All right, I want to get to some Tiger news before we end the program. Tigers. We haven't talked about the Tigers in a while because we've been focusing more on Michigan State. We had a little bit of Red Wings and a tiny bit of Pistons talk in there as well. We'll get to those guys in another episode as well because I think the Red Wings are kind of in a similar situation with the Tigers. I think there's just a lot of young talent on this team, and it might be a team that might surprise, might be winning more games than some people think. And who knows, especially with the NHL having a bigger playoff format, they may even sneak in as like an 8 seed or something. So we'll definitely keep tabs on the Wings throughout the season as well. And the Pistons, I don't know what's going on with them. I mean, Cade Cunningham, it's obvious that ankle's bothering him and, some injuries. They're just not clicking right now. and I'll definitely be monitoring that situation as well. But so the Tigers ended their season 77 wins. That's the most they've had since 2016. So, I mean, in terms of the win column, they seem to be on the right track. And, a team that a lot of people think could be in the market to win next year, or at least try to go for that wild card spot. And in my opinion, I think the Tigers are kind of in a win now mode, and they're starting to become a win now mode because, and especially it was especially clear with this Tucker Barnhart signing. And I think this is a very interesting signing by the Tigers because it kind of proves a couple things. So one, Tucker Barnhart, if anyone knows, is a 2-time Gold Glove winner. So he's very much known as a defensive catcher. So obviously that's great for the Tigers. Another guy that was known as a defensive catcher, Alex Avila. So that's definitely interesting signing there. But also when it comes to the depth on this team, so in the system, the Tigers have a pretty highly ranked prospect. He's in the top 10 in the organization. He's named Dylan Dingler. He's from Ohio State. So he's supposed to be, I guess, kind of like the catcher of the future for the Tigers. So some might think, well, why would they sign Tucker Barnhart for $7.75 million and make him the 7th highest paid catcher in the MLB when you have a rising star in Dylan Dingler and you have a guy named Eric Haas who got pretty hot last season, who had a really, really good year? Well, here's the thing. So Jake Rogers is apparently out for the year with Tommy John surgery. So, of course, if you remember, Jake Rogers was the defensive catcher who was in the Justin Verlander trade. He hasn't really panned out as much as I think the Tigers thought, but he was going to go into this upcoming 2022 season as the backup behind Eric Haas. Since Jake Rogers is gone, what did the Tigers do? They go out and sign Barnhart. Obviously, Haas had a tremendous season offensively, a lot of home runs and, one of the offensive leaders on the team for sure. But, that's one season. I don't know how long that's going to last. So I think getting Eric Haas some insurance, because obviously Eric Haas isn't the catcher of the future. Is he a nice piece for right now? Yeah, but I mean, are they going to really have him around when they start winning? Who knows? Plus, I think this gives him a little option too. If if Dylan Dingler is taking a little too long on his scheduled ETA time, which he wasn't even expected to be up with the Tigers this upcoming season. So I think it kind of gives the Tigers a little bit of insurance with that. But also, say the Tigers aren't in the playoff race by the trade deadline. I think Tucker Barnhart could be a valuable commodity to send over to another team, who's more in contention. So this could just be like a half-season thing, have him move on, after the season, or excuse me, at the trade deadline. So there's definitely some options here, but also, $7.75 million, that's a lot for a catcher. As I mentioned, the 7th highest paid catcher in the MLB. And they also have to give up former second-round pick Nick Quintana. He was not a very good hitter for the Tigers system, though. Who knows? Maybe Quintana, turns out great. But I think this is a good deal for the Tigers. Plus, it also proves that the Tigers are willing to spend. And what's something that the Tigers haven't really done the last couple of years? They haven't spent. The only big contract that the Tigers have left is Miguel Cabrera's, and that was from 10 years ago when the old man Illich was still alive and gave him a contract till he was 41, 42 years old. So I think it's kind of proving that the Tigers are going to be back in the market for someone big. And hopefully they can get a big piece. And one of those bigger pieces, I should say, is definitely a shortstop. And, a couple of names out there. And I've been talking to you guys about this. I talked about it early in the summer, too, when the rumors started coming up. So there's some shortstops this year, big name shortstops that are free agents, big free agents. So you got, I think the biggest one, and in my opinion, the one that makes the most sense for the Tigers is Carlos Correa, the free agent shortstop from the Houston Astros. Another one, Corey Seager from the Dodgers. Both those guys are 27 years old, so they're still pretty young, still pretty productive offensively. There's Marcus Semien from the Blue Jays, who just had a monster year. I mean, He's 45 home runs, over 100 RBIs. Trevor Story, there was a whole rumor if he was going to be leaving the Rockies at the All-Star break this past year, but he stayed put. He's 28 years old. Javi Baez with the Mets, he's 28 as well. Chris Taylor with the Dodgers, he's 31. And Jonathan Villar with the Mets. Wow, he's only 30 years old. I thought he was older than that. And then Andrelton Simmons with the Twins, who's 32. I'm not really as interested in Andrelton Simmons. I think he's definitely more of a defensive catcher, or I'm sorry, a defensive shortstop. Last season only 3 home runs, 31 RBIs. But historically, he's been way more of a defensive catcher. And I think right now, the Tigers don't need one of those defensive shortstops. They need a guy who can be, who has pretty good defensive numbers, but a guy that can really produce offensively. And Andrelton Simmons isn't really that guy. Plus, he's 32. He's getting up there in age. So I'm not as interested. I'm not really interested in VR either. He's a guy that has kind of declined as well. And really, his big thing is stealing bases. That's something that he's made his living off of stealing bases, and he's not as flashy of a player either. But I'm not really feeling it with these guys who are over 30. Also, I'm not really feeling it with Javi Baez either. Really high strikeout rate. He's got the ability to slug though, which is what the Tigers need. But I'm not feeling Javi Baez. Really, the guys I think would make the most sense for the Tigers, Carlos Correa or Corey Seager. I think Corey Seager, he's projected to get like a 10-year, $305 million deal. I don't know if the Tigers necessarily need that. But, man, Carlos Correa is going to get paid somehow. But I know that the Free Press is predicting that he gets paid 10 years, $320 million. Man, it's just, I don't know. Do the Tigers need to spend that much on Correa? I guess, that's a lot of money. And, I think the Tigers kind of need to learn their lesson from a couple years ago that they shouldn't be spending all this big time money on people. Now, will it be, maybe they can spend it on that one player? Yeah, but you're not going to be spending on all these different kinds of players because obviously what happened, it didn't really work. You're paying Prince Fielder dead money until 2020. Miguel Cabrera was great until he started declining. And then Justin Verlander was shipped off to the Astros. And what did Jordan Zimmerman do? Nothing. So I just think $320 million, that is a lot for a prediction. But, that's the big time money in baseball these days. Teams are willing to pay, a lot of money for these guys. And, Correa's also, he earned his first Gold Glove of his career last year. He had 18 home runs. And so the one thing with Correa, though, too, that's interesting is that he was originally with the Astros, as I mentioned, with A.J. Hinch, the current manager for the Tigers. So, like I said, it's interesting how they spent $7.75 million on Tucker Barnhart, who's a catcher, spending good money on a catcher. But does that necessarily mean that the Tigers are going to be spending big money on a shortstop, which is a big position of need? Because you assume that Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, the two biggest name prospects in the organization for the Tigers, they're supposed to be up. So Torkelson's supposed to play first, Riley Green out in center field, left field, one of the outfield positions, for right now at least. So you got two young prospects. Hopefully, Tucker Barnhart, I have a feeling he's going to start the season and they'll put Haas on the bench, but especially with that big kind of money. But it'll be interesting to see what the Tigers will do here in free agency. If they're going to go get Correa, if they'll get Seager, if they'll get one of these these older guys and maybe sign them for a little cheaper. We'll have to see for sure. That's just a lot of money though, and I don't know if fans would be happy but hey, if it's worth it in the end. That'd be absolutely amazing because, as we all know, Carlos Correa is one of the best shortstops in the game. At that price, we'll have to see. It'd be a 10-year deal. He'd be signed till he's 37. Wow. Crazy how much big-time money is in baseball now. Crazy. Make sure to check out all the other fantastic content on the podcast network. We have all of the podcasts with Doc and Jock, the wrestling podcast, the practice squad, the Michigan podcast. They'll have a little bit more detail about Michigan's win over Indiana. You know, of course, obviously Michigan State's bad loss to Purdue in a tough trap game there in West Lafayette this weekend. We'll talk more Michigan State in Michigan next week, and a little bit more basketball. I know Michigan State just started up playing some basketball, and they lost to Kansas. My quick thoughts on that. I'm not really concerned because Michigan State, they always play these big time opponents. Their first game of the season, and win or lose, I don't think it matters much. So, I don't think it matters much in the long run. So losing to Kansas, I'm not worried. Some Spartan fans might say, "Oh, season's over." No. I want to see how these guys gel. A lot of newbies on the team, a lot of some transfers as well. So I'm really curious to see what Michigan State will do this season in basketball for sure. And make sure to check out, last but certainly not least, all of the content from SI Lions that John Macaroon just does an absolutely fantastic job with. John, he's still at all the press conferences with the Lions. He's asking Dan Campbell questions. He's asking all these players questions and all that. And he's writing some really, really good articles for SI Lions, that's for sure. Thanks again, folks, for tuning in. And make sure to tune in next week only on Open Mic Night.